and welcome back or welcome. And this part in our Diablo like series, and I apologize for taking a few days, in advance here. I want to say I'm sorry because it did take a few days, but that's going to happen with more complicated systems that we put into this game series. And this one is part 11, and we're going to focus on naming our character and saving and loading with the JSON utility. Okay. Now, like in Diablo 2, okay, we need multiple saving slots. Okay. You can't just have one character and that's it. You need to be. I think Diablo 2 lets you create eight. So that's what I did. I let you create eight different characters if you want, and each one will get a unique save slot which you can select and load your character into. Okay. So, with that said, let's get right into it, and I'm going to show you how this is going to work. We're going to click New Game here. We're going to go to the selection scene where we can pick our character, and let's just pick the Sorceress for right now. Now, as you can see, what's new is now we've got this naming panel where we can set a name for our character, and we can either confirm the name or go back to picking another character. So, but we'll pick the sorceress for now, and let's give her a name. Uh, you know what? Since Snow White is so popular to make fun of, let's go with Dopey. All right, and we're going to confirm that. Now this is going to load the testing level we're all used to seeing. Okay, and now, as you can see down here, it says game saved to slot one, paths he uses, it says the path. We're saving to the assets folder right now. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the persistent data path thing that you would use as like a default save path would save the JSON files to your app data folder on your C drive. Okay, which is going to be, in your users, and then there's an app data folder, and it's a hidden file. So you wouldn't see it just by going into your users. You'd have to actually click on show hidden files to see it. The problem with this is you can't delete at least these JSON files from that folder. Okay, and the whole system here depends on being able to delete a character slot if you don't want it anymore. So what I did was I changed it to save into the assets folder of the current file of the current project. Okay, it saves in the assets folder, and this way we can delete any slots we don't want. Okay, but either way, it loaded her correctly after we chose her. Okay, and her name is now Dopey. All right, so I've changed this up to be I put letters over these buttons as I'm going to change that later with icons and stuff. But right now, there's letters to represent what they are. I is for inventory, and we bring that up with, or close it with that. And then M is for the menu. Here you can save and exit, and since we're working inside the editor, the exit won't work. Okay. I suppose I could have it, go to the main menu or whatever, but that's superfluous and doesn't matter right now. It's the save part that matters. So I'm going to click save. And if you notice down here in the debug, it says in-game progress updated in slot one, which is Dopey slot, and it's saved to the path of the assets folder. Okay. So I can get rid of that and go out of this now. Okay. And if we load file, save file, open recent, the load menu, which is all new to you guys. And we run this. Now we have a panel here which will house all of our 8 save slots, up to 8 save slots, okay? And as you can see, we've got Dopey that we just created. She's a sorceress and she's level 1, okay? And we can click to select that, and then it will show who the character is over here. And then we can either load that save back up or get rid of it. Let's load it back up and just see if it saved our changes. Okay. So that actually should have saved her position. Let's try that one more time. Save and exit. Okay. And then play it. Okay, let's load Dopey up again. And that did not save the position. So I have to fix that. And I think I know the reason why. You see, there's been a bug in this save load system preventing me from deleting slots correctly because of the way I was making it. And I just fixed that, so I decided to do this tutorial. And now you can delete the slots properly and they're assigned properly. And we'll get to why the position didn't save. But I assume it's because of the changes I just made to remove the bug that it had. Okay. But the save load system, as far as the slots and stuff go, actually works the way it should now. So let's load it up again. Okay, and actually, you know what? Let's create another character first so I can show you that it adds new slots. So we will open the character select level, which was there before, but now new has the naming panel, so we can name them, name our characters, which is, important for a game like this. So now we've got her. Let's call her, we got Dopey. Let's call her Horny, and we'll confirm that. Okay, and now it's going to save her. And like I said, it might not be saving the position and stuff yet, and we'll get to that because I just made changes to this. Okay, and it tells you in-game progress saved to slot 2 now because we were doing 1 with Dopey, but now Horny is going to be in slot 2, so it saved the data to slot 2. All right. Now, if we go back to the load scene and we play, okay, so now we have Dopey, who's a sorceress, and we also have Horny, who's an occult blood witch. Both are represented by the character here to show you who you picked. And we could load her up again. Let's load her up and see if her position saved. Her position saved. See that? We moved her down here and her position saved. So at least one of them is right. And we'll work on why it didn't happen to the sorceress, but her position got saved when I clicked save. So let's move her again down here. Click save and then get out of it. Okay, we'll play it and load her again and see if that's saved. Okay, so we'll load up Horny here, load her again, and boom. Now she's where we just put her. Okay, so the saving is actually correct. It's just something with the sorceress, and that's actually understandable because I just started creating new scripts that I'm going to put on each character, and the sorceress was next in line. We've been working with her, but now I created a new script to run the sorceress, and that's probably why hers isn't saving because it's something with her script. So that's not a big deal for the saving loading system. You can see that it worked. Okay. So let's go back into here. And let's just say that we're not happy with Dopey or Horny. All right. Let's get rid of them. We're going to click the delete button and boom. Now that slot is gone. And it says deleted save file at slot 2 and then the path to the assets folder where it was kept. And then Dopey, we don't want her anymore. Bam, let's delete her. deleted save file at slot 1. So we now have a working save load system that supports multiple slots up to 8. You can have up to 8 characters like you can in Diablo 2. And you can now load the save from the slot after you select it, or you can delete that slot if you don't want it. So, and it shows the character down there. All right. That's just a bunch of debugs. So, you can see that it all works, and this is actually really exciting. But there's a lot to this, okay? And this is why it took me days to get this next video out on this because it was quite complicated, okay? And I've never used the JSON utility before. All right, so this is my first time using the JSON utility, and I'd say it worked out really good. Obviously, it's much better than player prefs, you know, and yeah, it's deleting the slots, it's loading the slots, and looking great. All right, so why don't we start from the beginning? Okay, and that would be the character selection screen where you see the menu that you can input your name to. Okay. So what we're going to do is look at the code, okay? And if I look at character select, all right, because we've had this previously, but it's obviously had changes now because we can now input a name for our character, all right? And what's going to be new is we've got a public game object for the panel that we input the name into, and then we get a reference to the name input panel script and call it name input panel, okay? And that script is right here, all right? So in the start, we declare the name input panel, which we just created right here, referencing this script, and we equal it to GameObject.find canvas. All right, it's finding this by name, and it's finding this game object, the canvas, because that script is on the canvas. Okay, so it's saying name input panel equals GameObject.findCanvas.getComponent name input panel. All right. And if we look here, oh, we're not on that scene. That's why. Let's go file, say file, open recent scene, character select. So I'm sorry, we were on the wrong scene. But in this scene, the canvas, which that code is looking for, if we look now, has name input panel script attached to it. Okay. And as you can see here, we've got a reference to the panel because right now we're on the canvas. So we've got a reference to the panel, all right, which is right there. And then we've got a reference to the input field TMP text right here. Okay, and that's showing you right here when it's selected that this is it. That's the text input field. All right. And then we've got a confirm button right here, which confirms that you want to keep the character you just named. And that's right here. All right, it's a normal button. And that button has no script on it because it's called through code. What happens, okay? And then we've got a back button, okay, which is this one right here, which basically says, I don't want that character, let me pick a new one. And that's right here. And this back button has no script on the click because it's called in code again, okay? So that declares that. So that's the point we're at right now with changes in the character select script we've had before. We name the input panel that we want and set it equal to GameObject.find canvas, which is housing that input script. Okay. And then down on mouse over remains the same because that's just highlighting over the characters in the scene. On mouse exit, let's see, that should remain the same because that's not doing anything. But on mouse down, that's going to change because now when we click on one of the characters like dopey or horny, all right, now it needs to show that panel. So what happens is name input panel dot show panel. We're calling a function from this script to show the panel. And then we're saying name input panel dot selected class equals class. And that would be getting the class from whatever character we selected. So since we selected Dopey and she's a sorceress, we're telling the name input panel that the class is a sorceress by saying the selected class on you is class. All right, so let's go to the name input panel. And this is all new. Okay, this wasn't in any of the previous uh, sessions for this game project. So we've got the usings, which is Unity Engine, UnityEngine.ui, TextMesh Pro, and the scene management. Then we've got the public class named nameInputPanel, which is a mono behavior. All right. We've got a public game object called panel, which is the panel that's housing the buttons and the text input. Then we've got a public text input field, which I showed you in the inspector, and the two buttons, which I showed you in the inspector. We're declaring them all public so we could drag them into the inspector, which I showed you. And then we've got a public integer for max character limit, okay, and that's 16 right now. It might be changed in the editor because when you make it public, you can change it in the editor, and the editor number will override this one. Okay, so let's go see what it is in the editor. I think I maybe set it to 12. Let's see, the name input panel, right? Name input panel. So that should have the code on it, right? No, it's on the canvas. I'm sorry. So the name input panel, yeah. So the max character limit, I actually set to 12 here. So let's set it to 12 here because 12 is a good round number for a name. You don't really need any more than that, and it fits in where the text should go. All right, so that's the max character limit. Then we've got a public integer for the selected class. So there's 6 different classes, and if you notice, we pass that name input dot selected class integer and make it equal to class here when we select a character. So that's what that is for. All right. And now we're on to public system action string on name confirmed. Okay. Now we've got save data, current save equals new save data. Okay. Save data is right here. It's another new script. Okay. And it's going to house all the information we want to save on our character. For instance, a public string for the name, like we named her Dopey, a public int for the character class, which is the sorceress, the blood witch, the demon knight, that's the class. Then we've got a public float for their experience, their health, and their mana. So those can all be saved. We've got a public integer for the level, which is the character's current level. So say your experience, reaches enough to level up and you go from 1 to 2, then we save that as level will equal 2 in the code when you level up. That's what the level is the character's leveling from experience. Then we've got a public string called current scene, and we've got a public vector 3 for the player's position. This is how we save the position for the blood witch. And again, I'm not sure why it didn't work for the for Dopey, the sorceress, but again, I just made her own her own script for movement and stuff. So that could be a reason why. But you did see it work with the Blood Witch, who we've been working with, so you can see this all works. So we get the player's position, rotation, the current scene. So whatever scene we save in, we'll save that as a string. And then when we load that character, it'll take that string and load that level they're in, no matter what level it's on, by the string name of the level. Okay? It'll take that string and put it as the level name to load. So we can load any level like that we're on, even though right now we've only got that test level. All right. So that's what the save data current save equals new save data means. All right. Since we input a name and we're confirming that character, we want to save that character. Okay, the save data. Now, void start, we've got the name input field character limit equals max character limit right here. But again, it's in the inspector, so the inspector will override that. But we set it to the max limit. And then we've got the confirm button on click, add listener, confirm name. And that's why there's no function on the button, because we're adding a listener and we're calling it confirm name. Same with the back. We're adding a listener and calling it hide panel. Okay. But we hide the panel initially in the start method, so it's not there. You have to click on a character first. And then the show panel just makes the panel active, and the name input field dot text we set equal to nothing, and the name input field dot active input field, okay, is a function. All right. So then we've got the public void hide panel, so we can set it to false, like you saw up here, hide panel. And then we've got the confirm name, which you saw up here, that is being used as an add listener instead of on the button. Okay. And in confirm name, we're not just confirming the name, we're confirming the name, but we're also loading in the player character to the test scene. Okay, so we've got current save dot character name equals entered name, current save dot character class equals a selected class, current save dot level equals 1 because you chose a new character and they will be level 1. And then we do save manager dot save game, current save, and save manager is right here. Okay. And save game is right here, and we'll get into all this. All right. And then on name confirmed, invoke entered name. Okay. And then load selected. So let's go on down to load selected here. What this does is it says if selected class equals 1, set a player pref file. And I know I said we're using JSON, but we're actually using player prefs a little bit along with JSON. JSON is saving the main in-game stuff you're going to want to save. A few player prefs are going to save things like the class, so it can be passed on into the next loaded level, okay, without too much fuss. So it's saying that if player prefs set int class 1, if selection class equals 1, to tell the scene manager to load the scene, start level, which is our test level we've been working with. And in that level, there's an object that loads the character, okay, based on whatever the class is. So if you selected the Blood Witch and gave her a name and confirmed it, the class would have been her class, and whatever the class that was, I think 6, we pass into the player pref. That way, when the test scene called start level is loaded, there's an object that creates the character. It checks that player pref to see what character to create, all right, by the class integer here. So if the class integer is 6, that object will create the Blood Witch, okay, simple enough, right? So that's the name input panel. Okay, let's file save that because we made a few changes. All right, and now let's go into, I'll show you what I'm talking about. We'll go into the test level, file, save, file, open recent. And we'll go to the start level, which is our test level. Okay. And you'll see that we have the menus and stuff right now. So as far as this menu goes, let's uh, let's make it not visible on the start. And in here, you're going to see right here, we can zoom in on it. It's an empty game object, not that guy, it's this. An empty game object called load player. And on that empty game object, we have a script called load player. And we have a reference to each one of the classes you can pick. They're prefabs, and I dragged them into here. Okay. So far, like I said, the Blood Witch is ready to go. I just made a new script for the Sorceress, so she can be loaded in without errors, but I think there might be an issue with saving her position. Okay. But either way, this loads in the character you choose based on the class. Okay. And let's look at that script, load player. All right. And if that's not here, we'll have to open it up. So we'll go into our code. And what was it on main menu? Yeah, load player right here. Okay. So the load player that is on that empty game object that loads the player once the scene is. So here we've got the public game objects and their names that you saw in the inspector. Okay, you just saw that. And then we've got the health bar controller called health bar, and this has been in the previous sessions of this game project. That's been around already, the health bar. And the health bar script houses things like your current health, your current mana, your current experience, your current stamina, things like that. Okay, so we get a reference to that. Then we get a private game object, player, all right, and we're going to set that to the player. And then in the start method, we get integer class chosen equals player prefs get int class. We just discussed that. This is why we set it previously, okay? Because now this game object is getting that int, and it knows from that int which prefab to instantiate. And then we get the health bar, game object.find canvas, just like we did previously. We find the canvas by its name, and we get the component of health bar controller. That's how we declare the health bar script up here like that. Okay. Which really I could have just made it static, I guess, to access it from anywhere, but I didn't. Okay. So after declaring the health bar and we got our class, it checks all the classes to see which one you chose, and then the game object, player, the private game object called player, we set that to instantiate whatever class you chose. So now they're going to be the player as far as this is concerned. Then int slot ID equals player prefs get int current old. You know what? We don't need this anymore. Okay? We don't need it anymore. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I was using player prefs to store the current ID of the slots. Each slot is given a slot ID int. Okay? So say there's no characters created, and we create one like we did with Dopey, the sorceress. She got slot 1 because there were no other characters created. So her slot ID is 1. All right. And that's declared inside the save slot when it's created. It's told your slot ID is 1. Now, the issue was when you start creating more that I needed to keep track of the slot ID in order to reference the path to which save file we want to save to. Okay, because when it's saving to a JSON file, but that JSON is being called, save dot, not save slash, and it's got a number. And the integer number it's got is the slot number. Okay. So, like when we save to Dopey, it's saving to slot one. Okay. And it's saving the correct JSON file to save slot one or whatever it's called. But because of player prefs, okay, now using the class is fine. But um, when it comes to using it for the current slot ID, it was getting really messy. And it was causing errors that were stopping me from being able to delete slots. Okay. And I'm going to explain this to you while I roll a cigarette here because I need a cigarette. But yeah, um, I was using player prefs, and for some reason, the player prefs, they either weren't getting saved properly or um, there was like a ghost one that was changing values when it shouldn't have. And but the bug was that every slot that I went to delete deleted save slot one. So if there were two slots for say dopey and horny, and I deleted the second slot horny, it would delete the slot. But the debug would tell me that it deleted slot one, which it didn't. It deleted the second slot, but called it slot one and deleted the save file for slot one, which meant that the slot that was left, which truly was slot one, could not be deleted anymore. Okay, so that was a bad bug. And I tried debugging the issue, but that player pref was all over the place. And what I decided to do instead, which I'm so glad I did because it squashed the bug like a can of Raid and it fixed everything, was in Save Manager. First, let's get rid of this because we don't need it. Okay. So all this is doing, let's just get rid of this. Let's just comment it out for now. And let's comment all this out for now. Yeah, so we actually need this, but we're going to put in the correct path. All right. So if slot ID is saying, and it's supposed to be getting that from this player pref, which we're not using anymore. So we have to get that from the proper path, which is now right here. It's a public static integer, so we can access it from anywhere, all right, inside the class of Save Manager. And it's called current slot ID. And instead of player prefs everywhere, and there were actually two of them for the slot ID, which I don't know why I did that, but there were two of them, two different names being saved, and that's part of the issue. But now it's just one integer saved to the Save Manager file because this file, it's going to be in every single level you play. All right, so it made sense to put it here. It can be accessed from anywhere. All right. So like if we go to the save game, okay, that one shouldn't need it. Let's find one that has the actual path. All right, so let's say I think it's the main menu, access objects. Yeah. All right, so button save. This one is going to do just fine. This is the button you use to save in game. Okay, and it needs to be able to reference whatever character you've selected by that slot ID. Okay. And when the bug was happening, it was previously trying to get the player pref. All right. But now it says integer slot ID, which is a private integer inside this function only. We're setting equal to save manager dot current slot ID, which I just showed you. And now it has the path to the proper path to the character. So let's just take this, copy it, and go back to where we were. Now it wants a slot ID. So I can say right here, paste, integer slot ID is now equal to save manager.current slot ID, and that fixes anything here. Okay. So it's going to check if the slot ID equals -1, which means there's no slot ID and it returns. But when it gets the slot ID from here, it creates a string called path and sets it equal to the path to the proper .json file with that slot ID integer associated with its name. Okay. And if no file exists, path, then it gives you a debug and returns. Then we get a string, existing JSON equals file dot read all text path. Okay, so it grabs the file, the JSON file we saved all our stuff to, and it reads it. And then save data, existing data equals JSON utility dot from JSON, save data, existing JSON. All right, what it's doing here is it's keeping any variables inside the save data class we create, or we created, or I created, all right, that we don't want to write to. It's keeping them from being destroyed. Okay, so they stay, which for one thing would be like the character name. If you notice, we don't update the character name here. We update the health bar, player level equals existing data dot level. All right, so that's the current level of the player. We update the player's position. We update the player's rotation. We update the mana. Okay, we update the health and we update the experience. But we never change the name. So that's why these lines exist. We're telling it that whatever data is not being updated, don't do anything to it. Don't delete it, just leave it. And that's what these two lines do. And then, of course, we assign all the new information for the saved data that we do want to change, like the experience, the health, the mana, all that. We assign that here. Okay. So that's what that's doing. Let's save this and move on. All right. So that's loading the player and then giving it any saved data that that has been saved. And if you want to see that in action, all right, file, open recent. I think we deleted both characters, so let's go to character select and pick a new one, and we'll pick the Blood Witch because she currently has her spells and stuff active. All right, so let's pick the Blood Witch. Let's name her Bloody. We'll confirm it, and now it loads Bloody in. Okay, and if I select her Abysmal Bolt and start casting it out, oh, see what it did? That's another thing too. I have to tell it the current health and stuff and mana. Okay, that's one issue with loading that in because when it loads a new character in, they're going to be full. But when you load, well, no, because we just loaded a new character in. So yeah, that's what it's doing. It's basically setting them to 0 for new character because it doesn't have those values yet. We haven't saved in game to tell it. So I have to make sure the default for those are the max health and max mana, so a new character will start at max health and max mana. That's just one thing I got to do, but that's fine because it's just another thing on the list. But as mana starts to go up, I can keep using my Abyssal Bolt here, and as you can see, my experience is increasing, and I'm currently level 1. Right? But if I keep killing these guys, boom, now I'm level 2. And when you level up, these fill up. So now she's full. Okay, so let's just get another one so we can see a little bit of experience here. Now we have 20 experience. Now let's go back, and we'll actually face the camera so we can see it. And if I click save and exit, we're now level 2 with 20 experience. Okay, so if I go to File, Open Recent Load Scene, okay, so now we have Bloody because we just created her. If we select this save slot and I click Load Game, now it loads the game and we've got the proper health and mana because it saved it. We're on level 2 still because we saved it. And we've got 20 experience on level 2 because we saved it. And she's in the proper position and looking the proper way. So now if we can save it again, I guess. Now if let's say we click a vortex, start sucking these guys in. Come get me, guys. Yeah, get sucked. Oh, you didn't get sucked? Oh, that's too bad. Okay, well, all you need is 15 mana, so we'll just run around for a second until we have that, because we're at 14 now. Actually, you know what? We don't even need that. Let's go to Abysmal Boat. Run this way. We'll kill this one this way. Even though they're going to come back, because I want to go to the next level so you can see it. Okay, boom. Okay, so let's show you again. Now we're at level 3. And this guy should come back alive. Boom. Now we've got 20 experience and we're at level 3. So let's save it. Get out of it. Play it. Select her again, and as you can see, even in the slot, it's updating. You're level 3. You're an Occult Blood Witch, and now you're level 3. So let's load her again. And now it shows where we were when we saved it. We're level 3, and it's still got our experience. So that shows the system working. And again, if we wanted to delete the file, it would be just as easy as selecting it and clicking delete, and now it's gone. Bloody is gone. Okay. So that is that. And then, so our save data file, that's what this is. I'll give you a second to copy this. That's our save data. As you can see, it's a public class called save data, and it is not mono behavior. Okay. We don't want it to be mono behavior. And then you've got the save slot script, which is placed on the slot prefab. So that slot you saw that I clicked on for Bloody, that's a prefab that say the save slot loader script loads in when you create a character. But the save slot itself is right here. Okay. This code is on the prefab that the save slot loader will load in to that panel. And as you can see, we've got our usings. We've got the engine, UI, TextMesh Pro, and the system.io, all right, needed for file access. Then we, have the public class save slot, which is mono behavior. And then we use a header UI reference, so it just sets up in the UI how these will be. And we've got the public text for the name text, the public text for the class text, and the public text for the level. And that's what I just showed you. All right. When I showed you the slot, I said, hey, it saved our level. We're level 3 in the slot. That's right here. The level text is what changed. And then the class text, once you pick a class, that doesn't change. You pick an occult blood witch, and then this will stay an occult blood witch. Same with the name. That shows the character's name you chose, and it will keep the character's name you chose. But the level text gets updated depending on what level you are. Then we have a public button for the load button, and assign this to the prefab. Okay. And that is for clicking on the slot itself, I believe. And again, there's a lot to this, so forgive me if I don't remember exactly what I did, but I believe that's for clicking on the slot. And I'm trying to put my cigarette out here, so wait a second. All right, so yeah, that slot needs a button component so it can be clicked on and utilized. And I believe that's what that is, but we'll find out in a second. And then we've got hide and inspector in square brackets, a public int called slot ID. And again, this is where all the magic happens for saving and loading, because that slot knows what slot ID it is. And that's where we get the number from that we save inside the save manager, public static int current slot ID. Okay. It can be gotten from the slot, which I believe it actually is when the character is created. And this int is set to that. The this int is set to this ID. Then we've got a private static string get file path integer and the slot ID. And what it does is it greets a string called folder path and equals it to application.data path. So it points to the assets folder. And as I believe I explained, I changed it to the asset folder for testing, okay, because you can't delete files from the app data folder it was saving to on my C drive. Then a string file path, so we say path.combine, the folder path we just declared, and then the $ save slot ID.json. So the save slots will be called save slot, and then another dash, and then a number. And the number is going to be the slot ID. So in other words, if there's no characters created, you create one. Its slot ID is 1, which means its save file is going to be save slot 1 because of the slot ID. And that's how we know which files to save to, depending on which characters are being played. And then we return the file path. And then we've got a public void on button click. Okay, and again, this is why we needed the load button. Okay, we needed to be able to access when that slot is clicked on. So on load button click, we get a debug.log saying that what slot ID is to load. And then we say if file exists, get file path slot ID, string json equals file, read all text, get file path slot ID. And then we do save data right here. Loaded data equals json.utility from JSON, save data JSON. Okay. And like I said, we're using the JSON utility now to save things instead of player prefs, which is so much better. JSON is so much better because in the end, when we're done, we should be able to um, protect JSON files from like easy access by encrypting them and stuff. So that's why we're switching to JSON and using the JSON utility. Then character showcase. Now character showcase is remember when I clicked on a slot, it showed that the player you were selecting that's associated with that character. That's what character showcase does. All right, and character showcase equals find first object by type character showcase. So in other words, we're finding this script by its name, character showcase, or type. It's probably finding it as a script file by type, but it's using the name character showcase. All right, and let's just, which ones are we done with? All right, we've done with this one, this one. Let's bring that up so you can see it, character showcase. See, I told you there was a lot to this, but it's worth it because it's all working now, and it's really cool that you can have multiple save slots like in Diablo 2. So character showcase. And again, this just deals with the character you see on the screen that I showed you when you click on a slot in that loading panel scene. All right. So we've got the public class, it's a mono behavior. We've got the header to organize the UI objects here. We've got the public game object, Demon Knight, Holy Knight. All of the classes are public game objects here so that they can be loaded in and shown when you click on a slot. And then we've got the public void show character into class ID. And the class ID we've already discussed. It's saying it's an integer which says what class you've selected. And then first off, we hide every single character because they're all in there. Hide them all. And then we say switch class ID. Okay. And then case one for the class one, Demon Knight set active true, and then break. So nothing else happens. So what's happening is case one, case two, case three is checking to see which class ID it is. All right. And if it's, say, case six, the occult blood witch, then it sets her active true, which you just saw when I was using that level. All right. And then it's got one more for default, which you need. That is just a debug warning with nothing in it, but it can say like no class found or something. And then we've got a public void, hide all characters, and it just shows them all and hides them all so we can hide them if we need to. Okay, and that's all the character showcase is. So give you a second to copy any of this if you need to. You can pause and there you go. So we don't need that one anymore. So where were we? We were on the save slot, right? Yeah, because we were talking about the character showcase. So that's what this is. We get that file. Then if showcase equals, it's just a safety saying if it's null. If it's not null, we do this, and if it is, we just give the debug log warning. But if it's not null, we get showcase.showCharacter and loaded data.character class. So this is where we get the class and pass it into the character showcase to tell it which class to show. And then we go to save manager dot current slot ID, which is the new way I'm saving the slot ID instead of player prefs, which I showed you right here. So we say save manager current slot ID equals slot ID. So what we're saying is if you have multiple saves and I click on one, we want to save the slot ID for that one in the save manager current slot ID integer. And this way we can access the save file associated with that slot. Okay, we know that gives us the path to the save file initially is this integer. All right. And then we go to debug.log saying current slot ID saved to player prefs, but it's not player prefs anymore, but it's okay. And then the slot ID. And then else we get another warning. So that's all it's doing. It's telling the character showcase script that the ID from here is the ID you use, and then we're saving the ID to that script. So then we got some classes coming out. Then we got a public static string called get class name integer class ID. So we're getting the name now of the class and not the slot ID. And that would be case one would be the demon knight, case two would be the holy knight, three would be the elven archer, and so on. Okay, and then again for this we need a default, so we just say return with nothing. And that's the save slot itself. So I'll give you a second to copy this if you need to. Then we'll move down a little. You can copy this, and in the end, you can copy that. Pause it and copy it if you need to. Okay, so save slot. We don't need you anymore. Let's get rid of you. Save data. I've already showed you this. We don't need you anymore. Let's get rid of you. All right. Character select. I've already showed you that. We don't need you. Get rid of you. All right. The save slot loader. Let's look at you. This script, obviously by the name, loads save slots. Okay. When you go into the loading panel scene. All right. And we've got our usings, which is Unity Engine. These are gray because they're not being used in this right now. Got a public class, save slot loader. It's mono behavior. We use another header for the UI references. We set the public game object, save slot prefab. So the prefab I made for the slot, which has a button component, I dragged into this slot in the inspector, the public game object save slot prefab. Okay, that way this script can access it and load it in. Then we've got a public transform for the slot parent, okay, which is the panel basically. Then in the start, we load all save slots, okay, and that's right here. So for int I equals 1, because they start at 1 and go to 8. For int I equals 1, I is less than or equal to 8, I plus plus, slots 1 to 8. If save manager dot save exists, I, from up here, then we get the save data equal to save manager dot load game I. Okay, so we load the game data for that slot. Then we create the save slot I with that data. All right, and if you want, we can go look at load game from the save manager right now since we're there. Right here. So this is the function we just called there. Public static save data load game integer slot. String path equals path.combine once again. And we're saying the save folder, which is the assets folder, save slot and the slot ID, okay, which is slot. Okay. And then if file.exists path string json equals file dot read all text path return json utility dot from json save data json. Then of course we got a debug warning and a return, and we really don't need this, or at least this. Get rid of it. I don't think we need this either, but I'm just going to comment it out in case I'm wrong. We'll save that. Okay, and then this was a previous delete, and you'll notice it was using player prefs to get that slot ID, which was screwing me hard. So we can delete that because it's fixed, and we can move on to the correct one, which I created here, which is a public static void delete save. All right, and it gets an integer for the selected slot ID, which is now being referred to from the Save Manager current slot ID. And if selected slot ID, which we just declared here, equals -1, so in other words, there's no slot, then it debugs the warning no slot ID selected and returns. And then we get a string path equals path.combine application.data path, again, the assets folder. And then we got the save slot and the ID number for it, .json. Okay, and that gets the correct path and save file name to delete. Then if file exists path, debug.log, file exists at path, proceeding to delete, it tells you it's going to delete it. Then it deletes the file, file.delete, and from the path. Then it gives you another debug saying deleted save file at slot, the ID number. Okay, and that's if the file exists. Else it gives you a warning saying it didn't exist. So, why is this? Why is that all now? See, I shouldn't have, what did I do? Load. So what did I just change? The save slot loader, right? I probably get rid of the script too. What did I just change? We were working on save slot loader. Save manager CS 47 load game integer. So save manager 47. Yeah. Is it because I did this? It has to be right. Yeah. Oh, see, it's a good thing I just commented it out and didn't delete it because it would have caused an error if I didn't. So we need that. Return null. Don't get rid of it. All right. All right. But we were looking at the load game, I believe, from here. Yeah. So we were down here saying save data equals save manager dot load game I. Okay, and that's why I showed you the load game here and almost broke my code again. So after that, we create the slot I plus the data. Then we've got a function refresh slots. Okay, so let's say after a slot is destroyed, what it does is for each transform and child slot parent, so every slot on that panel, it destroys them all. And then it loads all save slots to refresh only the ones that weren't deleted. Then we've got a create slot, create save slot, integer slot ID, which we've been talking about a lot, save data, data. So the save data file, script and the data in it. And what we do is we get a game object save slot and instantiate the prefab for it, and then declare the slot parent. And then save slot script equals save slot dot get component save slot. So that's the script on the prefab, and we're getting it. And then we say save slot script dot slot ID equals slot ID, so we know the ID. All right, directly set the slot ID. Then fill in the text. So obviously the character name, the class name, and the level is what this does. It gets that, name text from the save slot script, and it sets it to that. The data character name from the save data script, which I got rid of because we were done with it. And then hook up the load button with the correct slot ID. So save slot slot.script.load button on click remove all listeners. And then save slot.load button on click add listeners greater than or equal to save slot script dot on load button click. Okay. So load button, which I told you, well, I get rid of it already, but that's the load button. It's actually the load button. So save manager. Let's file and save that. Um, I don't know if we've gone through this 100% yet, but let's do it just in case we haven't. We've got the public class save manager. It's not a mono behavior. I'm sorry. And then we've got the public static int current slot ID, which is the integer I just saved and am switching to instead of using player prefs to get the slot ID whenever we need it so that we can get the path to the correct save file. So that's what that is. And now that I'm saying that, I'm pretty sure we went through all this. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you this for a second so you can copy it down. And then we'll go down here and we'll wait a second so you can pause and copy that down. Then we'll go down here and we'll pause for a second so you can copy all that down. And then we'll go down here and at the end you can pause and copy that down. And that is the save manager. So that's done. Let's get rid of you. And the save slot loader, I believe we already got through all this. We went to create all slots. So we don't need you anymore. Discussed you. All right. The main menu code. I don't know if we've gone through this or not, but let's do it real quick. Public character showcase, which shows the character when you click a slot. The public save slot loader, which I've already showed you, called save slot loader. So this is just so you could drag that script into the inspector. And the same with this. It's so you grab that script and drag it into the inspector, and we call it showcase and save slot loader. Then the int, the selected slot ID is set equal to -1 at the start. Then load a new load a new game. All right, we tell the scene manager script to load the scene character select. All right, so obviously this is the main menu that I started from when I started this video. Okay, this load new game, that was on that new game button I clicked. And what it did was it told the scene manager, which we're using up here, to load this scene, the character selection screen. And then we've got a load saved game. Okay, and what happens is when you, if you have a character already created in a save slot, you click that slate. Oh, I can't talk. You click that saved slot, then you have to click the load button. That's what you do here, load saved game. So scene manager dot load scene load scene. And then that load player object I showed you inside the scene would, well, this loads, I'm sorry, this is on the load button on the main menu. Okay, let's just go back for a second. I'll show you. Because again, I did so much for this system that it's kind of hard to keep track of what I did. So put file, open recent, main menu. Okay, if we play it, when this video started, this scene was open and I clicked new game. But this is the load game button. And if we click that, it brings us to the load screen where you can load previously saved characters. So that's what this button does. Load save game, it loads a scene, load scene, which is the one I just showed you. Then we got a public void button load, integer slot ID equals save manager slot ID. That's the slot ID I just showed you I created in the save manager. And, we get the slot ID from that. And then we check to see if it's -1, which means an ID doesn't exist. And then we set a string path to equal path dot combine assets save slot ID dot json. And again, if the path doesn't exist, we do a warning. Then string existing JSON. Once again, we're getting these two next lines, just like I showed you, to um, preserve any data we don't want to change. And then we get if no string is null or empty, existing data dot current save. Okay. Scene manager dot load scene existing data dot current scene. Else debug another debug warning. And then player pref set in class. Now this one we can use, okay, because it wasn't breaking anything. And all this is doing is setting the an integer in a player pref for the class you selected. And we're using that, so we don't want to get rid of it. Okay, so yeah, so we set the int class in that player pref to existing data.character class, and we are using that. And then we've got a on delete button clicked, and it creates a private integer inside this function called selected slot ID and sets it equal to save manager.current slot ID, the same one we've been talking about. And then it says save manager.delete save. Okay, and I've already showed you that in the save manager. Delete. And then it says save slot loaded, refresh slots because you just deleted one, and I've already showed you that. And then it says showcase hide all characters, and I've already showed you that function inside of the showcase script. So let's look at this real quick so you can copy anything you need. Take a minute and bring it down. You copy anything you need. Then bring it down and you can copy anything you need from the end here. And we're going to get rid of it because we just talked about it. And that brings us to access objects. All right. And this is a script that's also going to be in scenes that you're playing, okay, so that you can access certain objects. That's why I called it that. In the usings, it's using the engine in the system.io. It's declaring the health bar controller like we did previously so we can access it. We're creating a public save data called SD, a public game object called attack panel, and this is the script, the save data script, we're calling it SD. Then a public game object attack panel, and a public game object menu panel, and a public game object player and set it equal to null at first. Then an integer class chosen. And this is what that game object I showed you that loads the player when this level is loaded. This is where it gets the class int from to decide what player character to load. Then in the start, we say class chosen equals player pref.getting class, and that's the player pref I just showed you that I said we don't want to delete because we're using it. Right here, we're using it. Then we get the health bar that we declared up here for the controller. We get the health bar controller script, and we named it health bar. So the name health bar we set equal to game object find again canvas because it's on the canvas, and we're finding it by name. And then we're getting the component off that canvas, which is the health bar controller script. And then we got a public void for showing the inventory panel, which I showed you during gameplay. And it just basically, it doesn't set it active or deactive because since it's an inventory panel, if it were set to be not active, so you wouldn't see it, you wouldn't be able to drop files to it, like, health potions and stuff. You wouldn't be able to, you'd get errors if you picked up a health potion and tried to put it into the inventory like it should automatically. It would give you an error if the inventory panel was set active to false. So instead of doing that, we hide and show the inventory panel by simply saying if inventory panel dot get component rect transform dot anchor position dot x is less than 0, which means it's off screen and hidden. Then we say the inventory panel.getComponent position equals a new vector 3. And here, this vector 3 puts it on the screen where I want it, x and y. And it's vector 2, not vector 3. I apologize. So we've got a vector 2 of x and y for the screen. And we set its rect transform to that. Now, else it is on the screen, you can see it, so it's here. Then we set inventory panel to get component rect transform dot anchored position to a new vector 3, and we set it to minus 295, minus 314, which moves it off the screen. So basically, we're just setting it on and off the screen, not active and inactive when we're showing and hiding the inventory panel, because we still need to access it. And then we've got public void show attack panel, and I'm pretty sure that's the panel that has the spells on it. So let's just set active true. Show menu panel, and that's when you click the little M, you get that menu panel where you can save and exit. That's what that is. And it's set to active true or false, depending on if it's active self. And then we've got a public void select melee and attack panel dot set active false. And I'm not sure I'm using that yet because basically you can just go up and attack an enemy without selecting a melee attack. I probably put this in for like future reference in case we want to do something like that. You know, because you're going to have a left and a right side for like abilities and skills. And right now, the left side is going to show what you use for magic, but the right side um, right now is automatically melee. So if I decide to change that and make it so that you want to like a spell in each one and no melee attack, then that's what this would be for. And then we've just got public voids to select the vortex spell, select the firewall spell, and select the bloodstone spell. Firewall is just the wrong name for the actual abyssal bolt spell. Okay, so we got vortex abyssal bolt with the wrong name, and then the bloodstone, which is setting them to stone, which again we've done in a previous part to this series. And I've explained why that's a different name in a previous part of this series, so I'm not going to do it again. And then we got a public void button save. And this is where I clicked on the save and exit to save the character's position and rotation and stuff I showed you. That's what this function is. And we do a debug.log saying button save called. I did that for myself for debugging issues. And then we set a private integer inside of this function called slot ID and set it equal to the save manager.current slot ID, which I showed you. Instead of, because it used to go through player prefs. And again, player prefs was fucking me. So we say integer slot ID equals the save manager.current slot ID, which is the fix to that bug. Then we, check to see if the slot ID exists or not and give a warning if it doesn't. Then we set the path according to the slot ID we just got from the save manager.current slot ID. And we set the path to the assets folder, application.datapath, the assets folder, and then save slot ID.json. So we get the correct save file for whatever character is being saved. And then another check to see if the file exists in the path, and we give a warning if it doesn't. Then we've got a string existing JSON, and again, these two, they're just to save any information. And I think I've gone through this with you already. It's just to save any information that we're not changing so it doesn't get deleted. And then we update the existing data.mana equals health bar.current mana because the health bar script houses all that mana, health, experience level, stamina, all that. So we set the existing dot mana equal to the health bar dot current mana. So we're saving the health bar, the mana, the XP, the player level. We're saving all that to existing data, all right, inside the save data. And for the position and rotation of the character, which is player position, player rotation in the save data script I showed you, we're setting those equal to the game object dot find with tag player, because each player that's loaded in has a tag called player. So that's how we're getting their transform position and transform rotation to save. And then a string updated JSON equals JSON utility dot to JSON existing data true. File dot write all text path update JSON. Then we set a debug log to tell you in-game progress updated in slot ID, so it verifies that you saved it to the correct slot. And now we can get rid of that because that's done, and we've gone through everything, which, hot damn, that was a lot. So you've seen the save slot loader, you've seen the save slot code, you've seen the save manager, you've seen the save data, okay, which is just that data that we want to save. You've seen the name input panel, you've seen the main menu code, you've seen the load player, you've seen the load main, which just loads the main menu. Because actually there's a where's the logo? I started a logo panel I'll show you. Right now I'm doing something in in Blender that kind of sets text on fire. So it's going to show my company name and then load the main menu, which is that function I just showed you. And then from here, we can start a new game. We can select a character. We can name them. Let's name her Lumpy and confirm it. Okay, and now we're Lumpy inside the level. And again, I need to fix this, but that's not a big deal. Um, as far as the health and the mana, I'll fix that and I'll show you the fix in the next one. We're not going to do it now because this has been a long video. But her mana regenerates, so again, we can just, you know, somebody if we want. I think I need 5 for an abyssal bolt. Okay, and again, this M means this button takes up the menu that we can save and exit. And then this I means you can bring up an inventory panel, and we've seen that in a previous one. I've kind of showcased it, but I'm still working on the inventory. You got to give me time with that. I decided the save and load was much more important to do it first, because of course you're going to pick a character, you want to name them, and if you're going to name a character, you got to save the name. And if you're going to save things like the character's name and that, you need to save everything. So I just decided that the saving and loading and switching to JSON utility was more important than the inventory at that time. So that's what I did. Now I'm level 2, and now they reset because I leveled up. And let's just put her way over here. If I click save and exit, then I get out of it, and we go to the load scene. And now Lumpy, if I load her, she's right here where I left her. She's level 2. She has 0 experience on level 2 like she had, and it saved everything properly. So that is naming your character and saving and loading to multiple slots with the JSON utility and a little bit of player prefs, but not really with the saving and loading. That's just for the class. But yeah, that's naming, saving, and loading multiple slots in our Diablo-like game series. I hope you got something out of this. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying the whole series. Again, I'm sorry it took a little time to get this next one, part 11 here out, but I hope you understand from all I showed you that was a lot of fucking work. And like I said, the way I did it with player pref, saving the slot ID, caused a major bug that I had to fix, so that took time. So I apologize for it taking a little time to get to you, but as you can see, it's worth it because now we have up to 8 different slots we can create for different characters, and we can save our progress to all of them. And now we're going to be able. Now that this is done, now we can concentrate on getting every character loadable with their own private script and getting all their spells and stuff set and introducing things like, gold, how much gold you get from a character drop, mana drops, and all that. And we can do all that and then just save it. Just add it to whatever our save data is and then save it. So with this all done, it's going to make it much easier to proceed with adding things that we want to save. Okay. So I'm going to ask you right now to go and hit the like button, please. It supports the channel and it's a free way to do it and it helps me a lot and it only takes you a second. So please go click the like button right now. Okay. Uh, if you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Go subscribe. This series is awesome actually, and it's coming along great. And you're learning right along with me because I've never used the JSON utility before. So I had to learn something new to create this. So we're both learning, and it's coming out great. I'm loving this series. So yeah, go subscribe as well and hit the bell icon so that you can get notified when the next part of this game series comes out. Okay, which shouldn't be as long as it took this one because now we can get back into the characters and their spells and stuff like that, and maybe introduce like some gold drops and things like that. But yeah, go subscribe, hit the bell, like the video, do it now. And I will see you in the next one. And until then, peace